You are standing in a hospital hallway. Somewhere behind a door, a woman is about to give birth. Everyone is waiting for one baby. And then the doctor says the words that change everything. It's twins. The room shifts. In an instant, the space everyone prepared has to double. Excitement, fear, double the joy, double the risk. Everyone in that hallway understands, without needing to be told, that this is not an ordinary birth. This is something rarer, something heavier. You probably think of twins as a modern medical curiosity, an ultrasound surprise, a statistic in a pregnancy app. By the end of this story, twins will no longer feel like a biological accident. They will look like one of the oldest tests a human group ever faced. Because that feeling in the hallway, that mix of wonder and dread, is not new. It is ancient. It is older than hospitals, older than agriculture, older than villages. And somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, in a freezing river valley in the middle of an ice age, a group of hunter-gatherers stood in their own version of that hallway. And they felt it too. And we know this not from myth, not from a story, but from a grave, because they buried twins. This story matters because it corrects one of the easiest mistakes we make about ancient humans. Assuming survival left no room for tenderness. Modern life makes it easy to forget how fragile birth used to be. You live in a world of incubators, blood transfusions, formula, heated rooms. If a birth goes wrong today, there is a team standing by. But remove every modern backup system, one by one. What is left when birth goes wrong? For most of human history, there was no team. There was a fire, a handful of hands, and the freezing dark pressing in from every side. Now take that world and double the danger. 2 babies, 2 sets of lungs that are too small. 1 newborn is a crisis. 2 newborns are a logistics problem for an entire group already living on the edge of starvation. This is not ancient trivia. This is a story about what your body was built to survive. Roughly 31,000 years ago, on the banks of the Danube River in what is now Austria, a group of Ice Age hunter-gatherers dug a grave. Inside it, they placed 2 newborn boys, side by side, faces turned east, wrapped in red ochre, a blood-colored mineral pigment ancient humans used again and again in burials across the world. Above them, they laid a mammoth's shoulder blade, like a shield against the weight of the earth. But the most important thing in this grave was not the ochre, not the ivory, not even the mammoth bone. For a long time, archaeologists just called it a double infant burial. 2 babies buried together for reasons unknown. Then genetic testing changed the story. DNA extracted from those fragile bones revealed something no one expected. The 2 boys were not just brothers born close together, they were identical twins. Genetically, biologically, one and the same fertilized egg splitting in 2. It is so far the oldest confirmed case of twins ever found in the human record. Pause on that for a second. You might assume ancient humans barely understood what twins were. So here is the uncomfortable question. Did their world see the second baby as a blessing or as a burden? Some older anthropological theories actually lean toward fear. The idea that in certain hunter-gatherer societies, a second infant born at the same time could be seen as a dangerous burden, even something to be feared. But look closer at this grave, and a different story appears. Someone took the time to bury these 2 infants with care. Their bodies were coated in ochre, a pigment reserved for meaningful burials. Alongside them, archaeologists found beads carved from mammoth ivory, a pierced fox tooth, and shells, small ornaments placed deliberately. And here is the detail that stops you cold. The two boys did not die at exactly the same moment. Studies of their teeth show that one infant died at or shortly after birth. The other survived for roughly 50 days before he too died. 50 days is the clue that changes the entire moral shape of the grave. That means someone opened this grave once, buried the first infant, and then weeks later opened it again to lay his brother beside him. Now the grave is no longer a snapshot. It becomes a sequence of actions. Think about what that means. Somebody remembered exactly where the first grave was. Somebody carried a second small body back to that same spot. Somebody chose, in the middle of an ice age, in a world with barely enough food to survive the next month, to reopen an old wound instead of digging somewhere new. That is not confusion. That is memory. That is grief, organized into ritual. But grief is only half the story. The other half is biology. You might be thinking, if twins were this rare and this fragile, why would a body even do this in the first place? Why would evolution allow two babies at once when one is already hard enough to keep alive? Here is where the science gets interesting. Twinning is not a malfunction. It's a roll of the biological dice that has existed in humans and in many mammals for a very long time. Most human pregnancies release a single egg, but occasionally the body releases two, or one fertilized egg splits early into two identical embryos. In modern terms, it is like a system built for one passenger occasionally being asked to carry two. In a Pleistocene environment, that roll of the dice was brutal. Twin pregnancies put more strain on a mother's body. Twin infants tend to be born smaller and more fragile than single infants. And a mobile hunting and gathering group, one that might walk for miles a day chasing migrating animals, now had to carry, feed, and protect not one vulnerable newborn, but two, at the exact same time. And this is where the site itself starts answering back. Researchers who studied the infant's bones and teeth at Krems-Wachtberg found chemical signs consistent with nutritional stress. Signs that this small hunter-gatherer band may have been living through a difficult stretch, a hard season with limited food. Into that fragile moment, twins arrived. This is where you have to stop thinking of ancient humans as simple. We cannot know what conversations happened around that fire, but the biology forces one question on us. How do you stretch a group's resources one step further than they were built to stretch? Every extra mouth to feed was a calculation. Every birth was a gamble against the season. The herd migrations, the size of the group, the harshness of the winter. The astonishing part is not that one twin died. In that world, death was common. The astonishing part is that one lived. 50 days is not long by our standards, but 50 days means someone kept that second infant alive through nights of freezing cold, through a group that could have simply decided the odds were too steep. Someone made room. Someone shared warmth, shared milk, shared attention that was already stretched thin across an entire band of people trying not to starve. This connects to something bigger about how humans survived at all. How does a species survive when its babies are born so unfinished? Unlike most primates, human infants are helpless for an extraordinarily long time. A human baby cannot walk, cannot feed itself, cannot regulate its own body heat for months, sometimes years. A human baby was never really a one-parent project. Raising even one child through infancy in the Ice Age required more hands than a single mother could offer. Many researchers who study human evolution point to this as one reason humans likely relied on what's sometimes called cooperative breeding. Mothers, fathers, grandparents, and other members of the group all sharing the enormous burden of keeping infants alive. One infant required a team. Twins required a society in miniature. So what are we really seeing in this grave? A family tragedy, or an early blueprint for human cooperation? This is the hidden mechanism underneath the whole story. Human survival was never really about individual strength. It was about a group's ability to absorb shock. A twin birth was a shock test, a stress test built by chance, thrown at a small band of Ice Age humans who had no hospitals, no incubators, no backup plan, only each other. And they responded the only way they could, with care, with ritual, with memory precise enough to find the same patch of earth weeks later and open it again. Not a monument, not a city, just the decision to return to the same patch of earth. You live in a completely different world now. If twins are born today, in most places, there is a hospital bed waiting, a team of doctors on standby, machines designed specifically to keep two small, fragile bodies breathing until they're strong enough to survive on their own. The odds have flipped almost entirely in your favor. Modern medicine changed the odds. It did not erase the old emotional alarm, that flicker of both wonder and fear in the hospital hallway, that instant sense that a double birth is not ordinary, that it demands something more from everyone around it. You feel that pull without knowing where it comes from. The answer is not written in a myth. It is written in ochre, ivory, tooth enamel, and a grave opened twice, that some lives arrive in pairs, and when they do, an entire group has to decide, together, whether it will rise to meet them. Ancient humans made that choice in the middle of an ice age, with almost nothing, and the fact that we are still here, still telling this story, still feeling that same pull toward the people who need us most. That is their answer, echoing forward through 31,000 years, straight into you. If you want more stories where bones, DNA, and tiny details change what we think humans are, subscribe.